I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the Pathfinder role-playing game system. Wow. When we left off, we were diving into creating your own magic items. We've been talking about magic items, and we're talking about you as a character being able to make them yourself, or possibly you as a DM designing new ones for your players. Alright, we were talking about the process of making it. It is important to note, kind of continuing where we left off, that you can only get in 8 hours of work a day. No more than that, period. Any more, and you're not getting any extra progress done. That 8 hours is your cap. Now, it is also important to note that you can make a magic item while you're adventuring. All you can do is while the course of adventuring, you are able to put in 4 hours of work. Basically, that's the max amount of time you can add into your schedule. Now, the fact is, this 4 hours only results in 2 hours of progress on the magic item you're making. There's the caveat. It basically would take you twice as much time to make this magic item. Now, the time that you're working on your magic item does not need to be continuous. To a degree. You could take a break for lunch, be there for breakfast, for dinner. The fact is that you have to work in 4-hour blocks. That's it. This only means really you can split your 8 hours in half, but still you could split your 8 hours in half, or you could get just 4 hours done in a day and call a day. Because the fact is, you do not have to work continuously on the magic item. You can have time in between. You could just work that 4 hours and then skip it for the rest of the time. You only would have gotten that amount of work done. Or you could work the 4, you could work 8 hours straight, you could do whatever you want. The fact is, though, that you have to have this period of time of 4 hours in a piece in order to get some progress done. Now, normally you need a quiet, kind of easy to work in space. That'll make it fine to work on this magic item, but sometimes there isn't a great space to work on magic items. This is similar to when you're adventuring, you get half progress done. That means if I'm in an area that's very disruptive, very loud, very annoying, makes it hard for me to work, I get that same amount of progress done. For every 4 hours, I'd have 2 hours of work. Half as much progress. Now, it's also important to note, you can work on one magic item at a time. That's it. As soon as I start working on the second magic item, I lose all my progress and all the materials I spent to work on that first one. I'm allowed to do this just fine. It's just that you can only concentrate on the construction of one at a time. Now, again, I could spread this out. I could have a day or two in between when I'm working on it. But the fact is, I can't stop this progress completely. The mindset in order to create this item and the process of using and enchanting it, if I interrupt it, I disrupt that magic. I'm basically switching my magical focus to something else and leaving that high and dry so it fails. Now let's talk about some of the basics of pricing. There is a set of formulas in the book that can be a guideline for you to determine some basic price. But that's not really the only way. The easier way would be to take a look at the item that's being created and look at similarly costed items in the list of magic items. If you find something that's got a similar cost to it, why don't you just make it that cost, or close to that cost, if it's similar enough. You can use examples to help you figure it out. And another thing, this chart is really a guideline. I'm going to note that probably a couple times today, that it's a guideline, that you are going to help be the final determining factor here. Now let's go over a couple of different things. For example, if you have multiple special abilities that do not take up a slot upon your body, well then, if those special abilities are similar, that means effectively they affect the same kind of thing, like all of them are enhancements to your attack abilities. Well then, I can actually add these together in the same magic item, and it's actually less expensive. It actually would be differently expensive. The highest cost would be what it would be, that standard cost for the highest ability. The second most expensive ability would actually be 75% of its normal cost, and every other ability after that would be 50% of its normal cost. So this is definitely assuming that it's not taking up a slot on my body, and of course, again, it's something that all the abilities are similar. Now, if they are different abilities, well then you could theoretically still throw them onto the same thing. And by different abilities, I mean one might add to attack, another to defense, another to saves, another to skills. These are completely different types of abilities, and they could be similar enhancements, but they are just different in what they enhance on you, what kind of magical effects they have. That's what we're talking about. We're only talking about the basics of stat boosts, but really they could be similar spells or anything that they would feel compatible or feel incompatible. These you add all the costs of the abilities together. Now if they take up a space on your body, basically one of your body slots, well, it works a little different there. Not only do you add them all together, but for each ability added on beyond the first one, you add 50% to their price. So unlike the similar ones where there's a discount, it's more expensive to have different types of abilities. Now, sometimes things that are determined by spell level might list level 0 spells. Level 0 spells are treated as 1/2 for purposes of determining price. That's important to note. Now, there are certain conditions which can act as a discount for you. The first is a skill is required to use this magic item. This means that regardless of what the effect of the magic item, it requires some kind of skill to use it. If there is such a skill that exists that is needed to use this magic item, it discounts the price by 10%. Not a big discount, but for something very expensive, it could actually be a big discount. On the other hand, if it has a specific class or alignment requirement to use this magic item, then it discounts it by 30%. So if I have class restrictions on using this thing, or an alignment restriction, it discounts it a lot. Now here's some very important notes about cost, which might both hurt you or help you. The fact is that different classes have different basic caster levels that they're going to be when they learn certain spells, or different spell levels when they're going to learn certain spells. This has a major factor in determining the actual cost that you're going to need to produce the item itself. The thing about most magic items is when we're calculating the final market value, we look to the base value to figure it out. It's about half base value. The exception comes in here when we're talking about this. The fact is most magic items are going to be assumed to have the common class and the base class for them. What I mean by this is you look to whatever class is the lowest caster level to be able to create this magic item. What's the lowest point in which they can cast the spells that are necessary? What's the cheapest point for making it? That will determine the market price of the item. So regardless, I might be some kind of class that learns a spell at a higher level and at a higher spell level. It's going to be more expensive for me to make this magic item. What I can sell it for, it's not going to be double that price. It's going to be double the price of what the other class over there, which is a lot easier for them to make this item, is. That's a disadvantage in this circumstance. This also can be a disadvantage because it will be usually assumed for certain magic items that the price is going to be based upon two different classes that can create them, Wizard and Cleric. This is for potions, scrolls, wands, and staffs more than often than not. It's going to assume that one of these two classes is the one creating these items, and it's going to have formulas based upon those classes. So those specifically will be based upon those specific classes, while other items, just generally speaking, that aren't those, any other type of magic item, you're just going to have to look to what are my requirements for this, what class basically gets the ability to use this the easiest, how much is it then that their base value is, which doubled becomes the market price. So yeah, you can see here basically things like rangers and paladins, and to a degree bards can get the short end of the shaft here a little bit just when they're making items, to things like wizards and clerics, and to a degree sorcerers. Now let's start talking about creating magic armor. Alright, we're breaking down each of these types of items that we talked about earlier in an earlier episode and talking about each individually making them. We're only going to start with magic armor today. Let's start with the basics. The fact is, a magic armor, to work on it, you're going to need some kind of heat. You're normally going to need things like wood, leather, and iron tools to be working with, and materials to be working with. And the sheer fact is, whatever type of armor you're working on, you will need materials appropriate to constructing that original armor in order to enhance it. It's also important to note that when you are enhancing an armor, it has to be of masterwork quality to begin with. The cost of this masterwork is added into the base price of the item and added into the market value of the item. but it is not multiplied from base price to market price. Basically, you calculate the base price, you calculate what the market value would be based upon those magical abilities, and then you add into both of those masterwork cost, / the armor cost too. Because effectively you're buying the armor as part of your base price, but you're also selling the armor as part of the cost of it too. Which, I mean, at that point in time, we're talking market value, and again, you might have trouble selling things sometimes. Just a little, one of those little hints about selling items that can be difficult, but that's an entirely different situation. We're talking about if you can get the market value, not your selling loot. You're making something and selling it. Now, there is one special requirement that is needed to create magical armor and shields. Whatever the enhancement bonus you will have on this armor and shield, your caster level has to be 3 times that. So if it's enhancement bonus of +1, you have to be 3rd level. Enhancement bonus of +5, you have to be 15th level. Now, if you add special abilities onto this armor, you basically compare the caster level you need for the enhancement, the caster level you need for whatever special abilities, and whatever is higher between the two of these is the caster level required. So if I'm only making a +1 armor where I need to be 3rd level, but I'm making a special ability that needs to be 10th level, I need to be 10th level to make this entire armor combined, because usually I'm enchanting it all together at once. Now, always important to note that if you're adding special abilities to an armor or a shield, it has to at least have an enhancement bonus of +1. At least that in order to get those. But that's it for today. I finished talking about the very basics of all magic items, talking a little bit more about making them, about the timing you can spend, and then I dove into, of course, costs. There is a handy-dandy chart in the book to help you with costs, or you could take the route of checking and comparing prices to ones that exist, or you could just take the basic route of adapting it yourself, because the fact is, the cost of the item will be determined by you, the GM, in the very end. In the end, it's your final determination about how much it will basically cost to make and how much it will cost to sell, how much someone could sell it for. Those final determinations are completely up to you. And the fact is, then, it's the same way as if you're determining if people can make magic items or order custom magic items or anything of the like, The amount of creation of magic items, the process that it takes, and the amount of time that it takes between PCs and NPCs, and if it's occurring within your game, completely up to you. Completely up to what you decide. I then began to dive into magic armor. I went over some of the basics of magic armor and its cost. There's just a few more details I want to handle, but I didn't want to overload this episode. So next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to finish up those few details about magic armor, and then I'm going to move into talking about a few other types of things. Magic weapons, potions, and of course, rings. We'll try to handle all of these. Maybe we might move into a few more. We're going to see what we can chug through in the next episode. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please just leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's just for the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. There's some great rewards there. It helps to grow and improve the channel. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.